As the Taliban rule returns to Afghanistan, the former captain of women's soccer team, Khalida Popal, has urged the female football players to burn their kits, delete their social media profiles and their photos to protect themselves from the Taliban. The co-founder of the Afghan Women's Football League has always been vocal about women empowerment. She has always used her voice to encourage young Afghan women to stand strong and be bold against the terror group. And now I'm being joined by Khalida Popal, the ex-captain of Afghan soccer team. Khalida, I really appreciate you taking the time out and joining us, and more so in being so vocal about everything that you feel today. Khalida, what are your thoughts today as I speak to you with the Taliban taking over Afghanistan and the fate of women like you and your comrades in the sport and women in sport in the country?
It is sad. It's heavy. It feels scary to see how a country collapse dramatically. How the enemy of humanity and women take over the country and get more power. I'm worried for the women of Afghanistan. I'm worried for the young generation of Afghanistan that never experienced life under the regime of Taliban, who had dreams and hopes and who wanted peace in Afghanistan. But now they are left alone without any protection in the country.
You have urged the female football players to burn their kits, to delete their social media profiles, to delete their photos as well. Why are you asking them to do this? Are you asking them to protect themselves from the Taliban? What is your fear at this point of time if they don't do something of this nature?
I hear it from the players because I have been in close contact with my players in Afghanistan. The Taliban has started searching houses, started searching for activists or for people who have been like vocal in media and public profiles, and they start killing people and they start like taking people out of their houses. So for me at that point, the most important thing was like how to protect our players. What is it the right thing to say to at least help them to protect themselves? So the first thing was like, okay, take down your social media channels, like take your profiles, take all the photos you have in your own social media channels. At the same time, get rid of your clothes, like burn it, get rid of it, because if they enter your house and they find it, maybe it will be trouble for you. So at least like how to protect yourself.
When you say if they enter your house, this is going to be trouble for you, if they find your football equipment, are you fearing for their lives and yours at this point of time?
Not necessarily my life. I'm living in Denmark.
Denmark, yes.
But for their life, I'm scared for them. I'm worried for them. I'm worried for their life because we don't have a government. We don't have someone who protect our players, who protect those young women. So they are left alone by themselves. They have to protect themselves, and that's why most of even not our players, but some of the activist friends that I have been like advising them to just like remove everything and try to find a safe space where you go, people don't know you.
Recently, to a news channel, you also mentioned that you've received a lot of death threats because you were vocal about what you think about on national TV, and you were calling Taliban the enemy. Is that true?
I have been, since the founding of Afghanistan, first Afghanistan women's national team, and being involved in Afghanistan women's football for such a long time now. I have played major role with development of women's football in Afghanistan, and I have even been, when I was in Afghanistan, that was a way, football was a way of activism for me, a way to be an activist, to stand for my right, and also to be the voice for voiceless sisters and stand for the right of women and men and innocent people of Afghanistan. So my voice has been always my power, and I've been using it to raise awareness, to stand for the right of the people who their voices has been taken from them. So it was not only Taliban, the people who have been in corrupt government, the people who had abusing the power. So being a vocal and being an activist, being bold, it is very dangerous in a country like Afghanistan. So many friends of mine was killed, shot dead, disappeared. I was lucky I could manage to survive.
In 2011, you took a backseat because you wanted to coordinate and empower the other women football players. In 2016, you were forced to flee to Denmark and seek asylum, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong there. You never abandoned the female football players. And today, what is your biggest worry when it comes to physical abuse or sexual abuse, death threats, rape threats, and not just from the Taliban?
In general, I'm worried. I don't know what will happen. What is the next chapter waiting for the women in Afghanistan, especially for our players in Afghanistan? Because in Afghanistan, football has been a kind of political stand, an activism stand. It was not just for the fun of the game, but it was more a political movement for us, for our players who have been activists, all of them. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very difficult, and not only from the Taliban, but also the men who were in the government, but they were against the women's football, against the voices of women. So now they have a government, or they have a group of people who are like-minded, who support the same ideology.
Are the Taliban at this point of time creating fear for a lot of your football players? Are they seeking shelter or asylum with their neighbors, trying to run away from the Taliban? What is the ground reality that you're picking up from the players that you manage?
Yes, especially our players in a rural areas. Some of them, they had to escape from their houses. Their houses are burned down. For me, the most difficult one was that because I'm in close contact, so they keep calling me, so they keep seeking for protection, for help. And being in Denmark, most of the time I feel myself helpless. Of course, I have a voice that I use it in media and seek for protection, for support for my girls. At the same time, when I hear them, like, they are escaping their houses and their house has been burned down, and I have been trying to find a safe shelter, and everybody left the country. Everybody disappeared or running. They're hiding. So the shelters that was for women's shelters in Afghanistan, especially in Kabul, they're just like nobody is there. And when I call some of the families to help these displaced families to provide protection, because of their profile, it's so difficult for those families to take the risk and support another woman to say, come in our house, because if they find out, so it's not only that player will be in danger, but also their family will be in danger.
What do you have to say about women not having any choice or having any rights going forward? Is that one of your fears that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, they have already announced that they will. The Taliban announced that they will follow the Sharia law, Islamic State law, and in that law there is no right for women, and for women they need to stay home and clean the dishes and follow with the rules at home, and they cannot work, they cannot go to study, they cannot. Although the Taliban say women have right to go to study. But they recently they have closed down some of the schools, some of the universities. The women were kicked out of university. The women who are working in Kabul, they were told to not come to the working place. So it's like a lot of contradiction what they are saying in media, what they're doing in Afghanistan.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because it's a stance which is different in the media and what is happening on reality, I've heard it from you, is absolutely starkly different from what they're projecting in the media. For the female football players that you are managing, have you written to FIFA or any of the federation to help evacuate those players out of the Taliban rule Afghanistan now as soon as possible, so that they can have a career, they can go back to playing football and have a better life?
I have because of the FIFA bureaucracy and like how they work, I've not tried to waste my time there. I went to the media and started, like, when I received the calls from my players crying and seeking for protection, I went to media. I started, like, doing interviews and asking for help and asking for people to come forward and help me to get my players out of Afghanistan. I was so lucky that many good friends and a good organization, not FIFA, came forward, like FIFPro, Players Union in Europe, and some other small non-profit organizations, and some individuals came together, helped me. We created a small group. We could manage to get around like 86 people, like players and their families from the national team of Afghanistan outside, with the support of Australian government to get to Australia. So they are on the way to Australia. 86 people we could manage to rescue, evacuate, and get them out of Afghanistan. It was the toughest time, especially the 2 nights that my players were outside the airport where the Taliban checkpoints were. Some of them were injured. They were beaten. They fainted because they were like 2-3 nights in a row. They didn't eat. They didn't sleep, and they were in the crowd trying their best to manage to get inside the airport where the international forces are there. But till there was many Taliban checkpoints, and they were not letting people to go to the airport.
And I want to come back to the point you raised earlier about what the Taliban says in the media is very different than what they're doing on ground, and the situation is starkly different. If you could draw up that comparison in terms of what they are projecting to the media, that Taliban 2.0 is different, but you say that it's not at all different. Let's hear it from you.
The thing is, like, what they have, like, most of people say, like, Taliban changed. Yes, they changed. Then they become smart. They actually trained some people to talk in media. Before, like I remember from my childhood, when the Taliban first time took over the country, they the first thing they did, they shut down all the TV channels, all the communication channels. So they kind of like shut down the country, so nobody could raise their voices and nobody could hear the voices outside Afghanistan. This time they have trained people who can talk in media, and they sit in the media. They talk like how they are changed, and they want the government, they want democracy, all these things. The first thing what they have done, like next morning, was like when they had their speech. The next morning, what they have done, they started again the public execution in a football stadium in Herat, where they executed three commanders who worked with the government, and they called people to come to stadium to watch the execution. So this is the first thing that is similar to what they have done in the past. The other thing was our female, or some of my friends in Herat, they went to university. They kicked them out of university. They said, like, go back. The woman cannot go to university. They did that. They started searching houses for people who are activists, who are football players, who are public figures, who are known in the public. They started burning down their houses. They killed them. Some of them, they were like, they disappeared. And there are so many videos that they have started like taking the leash, like beating people, beating women and girls. There's so many examples. Day before yesterday, they have returned some of the female employees that were on the way to go to office. They told them to return back and they should not come to the office. And their statement was that our Taliban soldiers are not trained to behave with women. So you see a lot of contradiction, like man sitting and saying we are changed, we want democracy, but it should be under Sharia law. And and the Sharia law, they don't allow. It's
Yes.
haram. It is against the Islam when a female singer sing, or if a man sing.
Yes. Khalida, this has been an eye-opener, and I appreciate you being the voice for the many women who do not have a voice today in Afghanistan thanks to the Taliban taking over. I wish you all the very best in helping these women, empowering them, and we hope there is light at the end of the tunnel for these women as well. And Khalida, continue your great efforts to speak to the media, speak so vociferously on behalf of all these women. I appreciate you joining us and taking the time out on India Today.